Hi, good morning.
Hi, Stan. How are you?
Good morning, Fermin Fautsch. Let me introduce Fermin Fautsch from Telekom, who's going to join me this morning, the Asia Summit on Clouds and Security. Thank you for coming this morning. Wonderful to see you again. As you know, this is a very important subject, and many people out there are thinking, how do they go to cloud and what they do in cloud, and how much important it is for security on cloud. But I know that you come from Telecoms Malaysia, so you have done some work in that area. In fact, there's been a long journey and from your experience. Could you tell us what you did in Telecoms Malaysia? How did you move to cloud?
Sure. I mean, we started our journey in the cloud back in 2012.
Okay.
So basically, we started moving some of our internal systems into the cloud, into a virtual private cloud. And that journey has taken us about 5 years, and it's still ongoing, but we were quite successful into moving a number of our systems and applications into the cloud with very important benefits in terms of cost savings, double-digit cost savings, and more efficiency. And very importantly, also is faster deployment of our own applications. Because that's something that I think sometimes we underestimate the advantages of that you have when you move into the cloud because of virtualization, how quickly you can deploy applications. So that we did it with our internal systems. But also we embarked in a journey to offer service providers cloud to the public and to enterprises. So we started also back in 2012. We were the first entity in Malaysia to launch a high availability virtual private cloud in Malaysia, hosted here in the country. So there's no issues with data residency, and that project is still ongoing. So we're offering already VPC, virtual private cloud services to the Malaysian enterprises, both to large enterprises and to SMEs. What we've seen is that over the last year, there's been a significant ramp up of demand.
Excellent.
In particular from large enterprises, including banks and including other large corporates. And I think the reason is that CIOs are getting more comfortable with some of the concerns that people have in moving to the cloud. And probably the most important one is what you mentioned, Stan, and what we have been discussing here in your summit, which is the issue of security and compliance. I would say, if I would single out one of the main concerns and most pervasive concerns into moving to the cloud in the corporate world is security. I think in terms of cost, I think right now you're reaching a consensus that in general, cost-wise, there are advantages into moving into the cloud because of scale, because of higher utilization, because of different reasons. In general, you will see that you will get advantages cost-wise.
Are you past the journey now that you have now moved and you've moved for some of the legacy systems and some of the systems are in cloud? If I were to ask you what has been the single most one challenge for you or a learning curve for you in that one specific area?
I think there's a couple of learning that we have had. One is no matter what, the cloud has new technologies and they're still evolving.
Yes.
So technology is still maturing. So when you integrate all the different technologies and different vendors, whether it's the orchestration level, whether it's at networking, always when you start doing integration with new technology, you'll face challenges. So that's one thing that you have to be cautious about. Launching all these new services at the beginning. But I think right now the technology is mature enough, and it will continue to evolve. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is moving from legacy systems and applications that you have. It's always a challenge. It's not easy, in particular at the application level. So you have to draw a blueprint or a roadmap to make sure that you have a phased approach to it, in particular large enterprises like us, like banks, like many large enterprises that have a combination of web-based applications, legacy applications, mainframe applications, client-server applications. So you have to make sure you have a roadmap where you do this in a phased, in a controlled approach. Probably that's the biggest challenge. Actually, the movement and the phasing that you do into moving into the new world.
Right. They said sometimes there's a misconception on cost when you go to cloud. I hear on the street some people say that it's cheaper in the cloud to go to cloud. Some says no, it's expensive in the cloud. But moving to cloud, is it going to be a cheaper affair or expensive affair from a cost perspective? Or you think where is the cost most used in the cloud? Is it in the data center, for example? Maybe you want to share your thoughts on cost?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you have to do, first of all, you have to. It depends, and I'm sorry about using it depends, but it really depends on the case. But in general, what we've seen today is that the evidence in this country and in other countries, and if you look at a lot of the even research that has been done on surveys,
Right.
Cloud is becoming more cost effective than on-premise systems.
Right.
And the reason, there's different reasons. One is, for example, utilization. The evidence is that on-premise systems have lower utilization than cloud systems.
Right.
If you look, for example, at typical email applications, when you go into cloud, whether it's a virtual cloud type of email offering or a public cloud email offering, normally utilization when you are running cloud systems is higher because you're running larger scale, because you're optimizing your systems, etc. The other one is things like, for example, at the data center. Yes, the data center is an important part of the cost, but it's not the data center itself. It's, for example, things like power, like cooling. When you are running larger scale systems, you're also optimizing a lot of the usage of power. And when you have on-premise systems, something you cannot even measure the cost of power because you don't have the measurement software and metering systems to measure power. So I always encourage people to do a full total cost of ownership over, let's say, 3 or 5 years. Okay. And the evidence is that normally the cloud will be cheap. That's what we've seen.
Okay.
Now, for example, you have cases where if you're running a lot of, I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, a lot of, let's say, a lot of data and localized data, where you might have a lot of needs for bandwidth. Maybe you need to have a hybrid system where you optimize your distribution of your system, but you can still use a virtual private cloud for that.
Absolutely.
But I'll always encourage, do a TCO, try to compare apples and apples, and I wouldn't be surprised that you will find that moving into the cloud will offer you, in terms of cost, cost effectiveness and savings.
Last but not least, if you have one piece of advice, say to the CIOs or the C-level executives on moving to cloud, what would that be?
The first thing is make sure that you know what you want to get out of it.
Okay.
Well, why are you moving?
Excellent.
Are you moving because you want to do cost savings, because you want to deploy quicker applications, because you want to reduce the pains of maintaining and upgrading applications? Make sure you have the objective clear even before you, and then do a blueprint and embrace the new technologies, but try to work with more mature players with more mature technologies, so you're not the guinea pig trying to test new systems where you have a higher risk of unsuccessful implementation.
Thank you. Well, Fermin,
thank you,
very
Stan.
much. And once again, I'd like to thank you, Fermin from Telekoms, and enjoy your day.
Thank you very much, Stan. Thank you for inviting.